Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I hope you're all having a wonderful time. We are very, very cold here, but hopefully the warmth will start setting in soon. Soon. We want our sun back. You guys in the north have kidnapped it, so give it back. But anyway, on that note, I have with me again the awesome Rachel Vaughan from Australia. And I really love hanging out with you, Rachel. So I'm just going to pop you right back onto the screen now when I can. Gosh, let me just see how I do this again. Grandma here is not very techno savvy, but there I found you. How are you, beautiful?
All
So
right.
good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Dylan. I'm going well, but cold here too. Bloody rugged up. Got my
Yeah,
nana rug on. Yeah.
absolutely. It is. I mean, we had like 2 days ago, it was 24 degrees Celsius. Yesterday, 14. So
Oh,
within one day, it drops 10 degrees. I mean,
oh,
and today it's like maybe 15 or 16. So yeah, we're having fun and games here. But hey, we'll really appreciate the sun when we get it back eventually.
yeah, yeah.
But it's been really good to see you again, and I've especially really enjoyed our last two shows we've done on heterochromia, on the ley lines, cryptids, stuff like that. And we've been having lots of chats about that. And I know there's lots of shenanigans happening in Australia at the moment as well. So looking forward to sharing um, what you with you sharing what is happening in Australia right now, because I know Australia there's always stuff going on there.
Oh,
Good grief.
always. Well, apart from all the crazy energies and people feeling really kind of like they're walking through quicksand and tiredness, a lot of tiredness. There's an article that's come up yesterday that I've just been posting about an ex-justice. What's his name? Justice Alan Bolton. There's so many, so often their name's Alan. My father's name's Alan.
My
And
brother's name's Alan, and my grandfather. I mean, and I really like that name. And it's so sorry to interrupt you, but I was thinking exactly the same thing. Why always Alan? I've got my baby brother who's so cool. I actually love that
well, not
name.
to denigrate your beautiful family members, but it's an anagram for another word that when you're sex obsessed, it becomes an obsession. It's interesting because my brother's abuser was Anthony Allen Munro. So it's, yeah. Um, but I
I would
digress.
love to actually expand on that at some point, even later on
Yeah.
if we can.
Well,
That's
it's
very
interesting because
interesting.
this justice, so I'll give you a bit of a background, but he actually worked for the Australian National, the ANU, which again is ANU is the beginning of another word that means the same thing, well, in the same area. And again,
Right.
they have an obsession with that part because, that part's not supposed to be, because they invert everything. It's not supposed to have things go in, it's supposed to have things come out. This particular justice, it would be laughable if it wasn't such a horrific story. But he was doing a lecture, and in front of an entire lecture theatre of people, flashed up some child rape material. Now, it sounds to me like Monash University, where this occurred, was trying to cover it up. There's an article that I've just posted where one of the witnesses said, the university seemed to be trying to just make it go away, just hide it and make it go away, but they weren't able to.
How did explain how this happened? So am I understanding this correctly? He's an ex-judge who's now lecturing a group of university students on what I would imagine must be the law, right? Um, and he flashes some child porn.
Yeah. So apparently, about 15 minutes before the end of the lecture, these images came up on screen. And the people, the witnesses were quite horrified. They weren't able to get any kind of counselling from the university for a good week. So again, the university was trying to keep it quiet. Um, this guy's now been charged. But what's really interesting is he was a very good mate of Bob Hawke, who's our ex-Prime Minister. And Bob Hawke was outed not that long ago by his daughter, who said that she was raped by one of his MP mates. And he told her at the time she couldn't go to police because it would have hurt his career. And that's all come out in the last few years. So this guy's a good friend of his. He was also an Order of Australia medal recipient, which, like an OBE, tends to be a bit of a flag, that these people get these really high medals. One of my the doctors that experimented on me got an OAM. So, it's very concerning that these people with these very high credentials it's a bit of a sign. You look out for those people when they've got these sorts of connections. If they're a judge, if they're in Australia, they've got an OAM, it's not a good sign.
Okay, so Bob Hawke, your ex-Prime Minister's daughter, was violated.
Yeah.
And he tells his daughter not to tell the police because it's going to hurt his career.
Mm.
Well, the only thing I can think there, the only way that would hurt his career is if A, it was him, or B, someone he knows, or one of his powerful friends. So I'm wondering, how
He was a
far
mate
does this
in
actually
cabinet.
go?
It was actually in his party, so it would have hurt the party as well. But today's day and age, people would probably rally more behind somebody who exposed something like that rather than it hurt their career. The reason why it would have hurt his career is because everybody in politics at that time, and most likely now, were involved in that sort of behaviour.
Exactly, because it's kind of like, if we're just looking at the Trump Epstein thing at the moment, I look at that as well, because even if he wasn't doing it, he would have had to expose a whole lot of his cabinet ministers, and that would have meant that he had to expose himself as well. So there's a whole can of disgusting worms under that, and your daughter is the scapegoat. I mean, there's a special place in hell for someone like that who absolutely is that way with their child. Honestly, I cannot think of anything more repulsive. If my father had come to me, if I had told my father that one of his friends had violated me, I can tell you that man wouldn't have teeth. That man would be, his teeth would be down his throat. I could tell you that for 100% sure.
Yeah.
I
And that's a
mean,
normal, natural reaction from a father for a daughter that gets abused.
and
It's what we call natural law.
exactly, LORE, right? Not LAW, because the LAW certainly has taken over the LORE, and that's what we have to restore, because these are the psychopaths, sociopaths, pedophiles that are ruling the entire world. And then we still question, where are all the children going? Where are the children going? Wow. We aren't ruled by pedophiles, are we? I mean, if you just look at, for example, Candace Owens exposing Macron, Brigitte Macron. I mean, hello, there's Michelle Obama. Those are just the ones that we know of. Our first ladies aren't first ladies at all. They're first men, right?
Well, Barbara Bush really not born.
Yes,
Oh,
I wanted to say about Barbara Bush. Wow, I saw a
yeah.
picture of her. I'm like, gosh.
It's so obvious, but because we're so dumbed down and we're just led to believe that it's the opposite. And again, everything's inverted, turned around to be the opposite to what it really is. And you can see, in Hollywood circles, they have the opportunity or the choice, basically. They either sacrifice their firstborn or one of their children, usually the oldest male, or they invert them. So you can kind of understand why they do the transgendering in the Hollywood circles, because the other option is horrific. You either kill them or you do this other work. But you don't have to do either. You just don't go for a career in Hollywood if that's the way that you get your career.
Exactly. This whole thing that something has to be sacrificed in order for you to succeed. But, I can't actually take that away from Christianity either. If we look at religion, it's like Jesus had to be sacrificed in order for humanity to be saved. How many times have we heard children have to be sacrificed in order for you to get a better career. Animals have to be sacrificed, even in rural cultures, especially in rural cultures. When your uncle dies and there's a big funeral in Africa, rest assured there's goats and cattle and pigs and everything that need to be slaughtered and sacrificed for that. When you marry a tradition, you marry someone, you pay them lobola, and a goat has to be sacrificed. Everything, this thing, that blood needs to be sacrificed for human salvation is, in my opinion, the root of all evil.
It truly is. It truly is. And if you look at the Old Testament, I was horrified. I read both the Old Testament and the Bible when I was about 18 because I was curious. And it blew my mind. The Old Testament's just a lot of really angry stuff from what sounds like a demon. It's very demonic to me. And it was, you had to sacrifice a lamb. Is it a sheep? Is it a child? On the Sabbath. You couldn't eat any of it. And it had to be done. And just the rigidity of it, it was very demonic. I just don't understand how people can have a religion like that and believe that's a good thing. So yeah, you're right. It's just this constant underpinning of the sacrifice. And again, like we were talking last time, the depiction of Jesus Christ on the cross in churches is just a big sign to whistleblowers: shut your mouth, because it's this is what will happen to you. It's a warning. It's not something to be revered. So yeah, it's inherent.
That is. I've never thought about what you're saying in the way that you've just said it. Like, wow, that crucifix, because that's exactly how programming has taken place with all of these SRA survivors. It's all done through religious programming and the cross. I mean, how is that even, how do we not see the potential for demonic activity right there?
Yeah. And that from the moment we're born, it's constant indoctrination, and it's everywhere. And you just gloss over it. But not anymore, because people are waking up.
It's so true, right? It's so true. It's so true. I mean, and just going back to this judge that you were saying, makes me wonder though. I mean, what was his reaction? I mean, when he saw these pictures, was it a thing that he willingly did, or was it a mistake of these child pictures on his?
I haven't actually seen anything in an article which would explain his reaction, just that he's been investigated. We've also had a series of childcare workers in Australia wide, mostly in Victoria, but it stretches out across the entire country with all the different childcare centres that these particular individuals have been working in. But a whole series of childcare workers are now under investigation that have worked in multiple centres. One of them worked in 21 different centres. One of these perpetrators had multiple STDs. And so all of these little children's parents are now having to take their children off to be re-traumatized, to be tested for STDs. And some of those, unfortunately, they have to have swabs and things taken. Horrific for these little children if they have been abused. That is just going rife in Australia at the moment. And the issue around that, what is so important to bring up is another ex-Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, who was childless, has decided, and she's doing this in South Australia first, where I come from, she wants everybody at the age of 3 to start going to childcare or kinder at 3. So they want to get them early. Now, it's a tenet of Freemasonry that if you can get a child and sodomize them before the age of 3 or by the age of 3, you can control them. I believe it's got something to do with the Jesuits as well. So they want to get every child, and they're starting in South Australia, all of them in, and it will be compulsory. And of course, it'll be compulsory and they'll have to have their jabs.
How do you make that compulsory? How
Well,
do you do that? How do
school in
you?
Australia is not compulsory. If you don't send your child to school and you haven't jumped through hoops through the education department to homeschool them, and there's a lot of hoops, they'll get done for truancy and you can lose them. They'll take them away. You lose custody. It's horrendous. The control here is horrendous. Do they have that in South Africa? Is it compulsory to send children there?
Education for white people has always been compulsory. Yes, it is. It is compulsory, but you to educate your children. I know with the African communities with so much rural schooling and stuff, I know it's difficult, and I know there are a lot of African people who don't send their children to school, although the majority do. It's now normal that African people go to school. In my childhood, it was very unusual that African people went to school because the whole thing was that they didn't want to educate them. They wanted to keep the African people uneducated. But of course, that didn't work. But yeah, to get your jabs, yes, it's compulsory to have certain jabs. But I have not heard anything from anyone saying it's compulsory that you have to send your kids to kindergarten at the age of 3. There was no such thing in my day. I didn't even go to preschool. It was called preschool. I didn't even go to preschool. I went straight at the age of 5. I went into sub-A, grade 1.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
this is a whole
I mean,
thing they're trying to bring in Australia, and they want to start it in South Australia, which is pedophile capital. So, it's horrific. And, there's a lot of imagery of Julia Gillard, this ex-prime minister, who's trying to bring this in. She's very, very pally with Hillary Clinton, even imagery of, she's wearing certain outfits that are very evocative of Epstein Island. So, because they like to shove it in your face. Oh, yeah, it's quite uncanny. It's unmistakable. A bit like, Ellen DeGeneres with her set, they just like to flaunt it, shove it in your face.
Yeah. Absolutely, they do, don't they?
But the positive is actually it's getting out, because if this needs to get out now, because people need to recognise that childcare centres are not safe for children. They're absolutely not safe, and a lot of the time they just move them around. If they get done for something, they'll just move them on to a different centre. Hence, one of them working in 21 different centres, and they've been red flagged along the way. No working with children's check. One individual that was dressing up as Santa in a childcare centre was going out with the director, the head of the childcare centre. She didn't make him do a working with children check. So, and they do love to dress up like Santa. Unfortunately, a lot of pedophiles do that as well. So, I mean, it's just every day there is at least one headline about a pedophile in the local paper in South Australia. And this is all happening all over this sort of country at the moment. So lots and lots of exposure, which is interesting because usually it's hidden. Very, very few people who actually get charged, who have allegations against them ever get charged, and a very small percentage ever actually go to jail.
What's happening with the Beaumont kids? I know you've been a great tireless advocate for that. Where are we with that now?
It's just gone quiet. So in March, it was all over the mainstream news. The sinkhole at Stansbury, my father's former property, was all over the mainstream news. There was a celebrity who had offered to pay for the dig. Ridiculous. The government should pay for the dig. All gone quiet. Nothing's being said. So again, this has happened before. And my sister, who owns the property with my other brother, had said that she would allow the dig to go ahead. She said that publicly. I shared that widely. All gone quiet again. And I'm not surprised.
Have they not approached to dig?
Yes, I believe they did. So I was in touch with the celebrity for a short period of time. That's all gone cold. He went off to Cambodia to do some other things. Not much has happened. I did have an interview with a gentleman who used to work for Channel 9, news, and I was abused at Channel 9 when I was a child, and he's got his own reasons to be not very happy with his former employers. And so I did an interview with him, and he's a very well-known individual in Australia. He's a football hero, basically. That interview was pretty much viral on TikTok, just the little shorts. So, you know, that brought the evidence out even more, but still nothing's being done. It's very interesting, actually. The premier of my state seems to be under fire at the moment. Lots of articles on him at the moment. So some of them are pro him, some of them are anti him. Right.
What are they saying? I mean, are these people being exposed, or is it just waffle?
When the Beaumont dig was happening at Castelloy, it's the biggest forensic dig that's ever happened, where they moved more tonnage than they've ever moved before in a forensic dig ever, apparently. This is what I've heard. And it was like tons and tons and tons, like hundreds of cubic metres. So during that period, the Premier of my state, Peter Malinauskas, stated that he wasn't going to do anything about the dig at Stansbury unless the Commissioner of Police, Grant Stevens, was going to hold his hand to do it. So he was going to leave it all up to SAPOL. And that's what we've got all the way along. I spoke to someone recently who pointed something out that was very, very clever. So the Mulligan Inquiry Suppression Order, which a major crime detective told my brother is the reason why they will not dig for the Beaumont children at Stansbury. And bearing in mind, the terms of reference for that inquiry was for wards of state that went missing, not children that had parents. The Beaumont children had parents, they weren't wards of state. So again, that indicates that my father, as my siblings and I have been alleging for over 19 years, was involved in the disposal of wards of state also. Can't remember where I was going with that. It's extremely frustrating. So this person who was has said to me that she believes that the Mulligan inquiry there was a suppression order placed on that. It was an inquiry in 2007 looking into the hundreds, if not thousands, of state wards that went missing in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So they were all, well, not all, some of those children were being used in medical experimentation. There's a suppression order on that inquiry that's 80 years long. Sometimes I hear it's 90, 80 or 90 years, very long time. It would be matters of national security if there were medical experiments and that actually came out in the public eye, because it was ASIO it was my father who was an ASIO operative and Secret Services operative handing these children over to these medical experimenters. And I've told you before, part of that was Kuru experiments, which is a prion disorder. They were taking cadavers over from Papua New Guinea, bringing them to the Adelaide Medical Centre and using the infected stuff to infect children. I was infected multiple times, thank God. According to Professor Dr. Matthias Jacker, little children don't come down with prion disorders very often, so I was very lucky. And part of the reason why my family was chosen, or myself was chosen to do these tests, was because my family are carriers for a faulty PRNP gene, which in my family presents as cystic fibrosis. My two full siblings are carriers for that. So technically, I should have been a really good candidate to come down with the prion disorders. I'm not a carrier. So if I had been, it would not have been so good. Yeah. And so when I was coming down with some of these symptoms, my father insisted that I go off and have genetic testing, and insisted that the genetic testers send him the results. And dutifully, I told the genetic testers that's what I wanted them to do, and they said, no, you're an adult, we can't do that. So they sent them to me. So I've got the results, and I've still got that evidence. When I told my father that I wasn't a carrier, he was furious, absolutely furious, which makes no sense. Why would any good, loving father be angry that their child isn't going to carry this horrible disease onto their children? So, you know, that was part of the waking up for me. A lot of different triggers woke me up as I got into my adult life, but that was a major one. And at the time when I was testing, I was barely able to walk. I was shaking constantly. And there's some of the symptoms for prion disorders, or Kuru in particular. Yeah, so if it's matters of national security, this could be another explanation why this hasn't come out. that my children were abused, but my father also was doing terrible things with state wards, many state wards. So, you know, he had impunity from prosecution. He could do whatever he liked. But yes, in answer to your question, it's just gone stale again. It's just gone quiet. My personal opinion is they want to bring it out. If they're going to bring it out at all, they'll do it at the next anniversary, the 60-year anniversary. So that'll be 26th of January next year. Or they will say, 60 years, never found what happened. Let's put it to bed. And they'll just try and completely suppress it. That's one of two things that I think might come up.
Well, I think it would be very stupid to suppress it, because I think there's been so much furore around it that enough people know what's going on, and to suppress it would really just be pleading guilty. And I also, you know, Rachel, honestly, I don't think the times in which we're living now are allowing for that anymore. I really don't. I think that honestly, I can't say for Australia, but I'm sure you will feel it there as well. But I feel, and you know, just speaking to a lot of the people here, and you know, a lot of the African people are very connected to their ancestors, and they just tell me straight, the ancestors are sick of the shit.
Oh, they
So
are.
the ancestors are sick of the shit of everyone, just what they do to Africa. And Africa's uprising, I'll tell you that much, you know. And I don't want to see it in a violent way, because boy, African warriors, they have no problem spilling blood. But at the same time, on the flip side, they are amazing stewards for the earth. They really are too. You know, you're always going to get those that will violate that, but that comes with poverty, you know, when there's that sense of lack. And if we just look at just this part of the continent, we've been so reinforced over and over again that we don't have, and we must take handouts from the West. Africa needs to be fed. We're the wealthiest continent on the planet, yet our people are the poorest. So why do we need to be fed? So who's actually stealing this wealth from us? And why?
Well,
And why do you tell
riches-
us that you are feeding us when you're stealing from us, but you're not paying? And then we've got to buy our gold back from you? How the fuck does that work? No,
that's it.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, just stuff like that. And I really just think that type of abuse, and I'm not sure if we'll see it all uplifted in our lifetime or in my lifetime. I would love to, but if I just see the beginning of it, Rachel, you know, if I just start seeing the light gaining momentum and seeing the kids of our future put all this together and just make it work, you know, let these perpetrators be held to justice. They have to be held to justice. I don't know whatever one can do with people who've done stuff like that. Their souls certainly will need to be repenting for a long time, in my opinion, and have many lifetimes of clearing karma. But I don't want to judge that, so I guess that's judgmental. But that's my opinion. But enough now. It really, really is enough.
Yeah, it can only go in one direction for so long. So yeah, again, you know, an example like that particular justice doing something that stupid. You know, if it wasn't so horrendous, it would be funny. It's so ridiculous. But that's the sort of thing, you know, maybe we've got some help on the other side that's just, you know, making sure that these things just happen. And I do believe that. I believe that, you know, we're not doing this on our own. And a lot of people get annoyed because they say, oh, it's savior programming. You think a savior is going to come in and fix it. Well, I've been working with spirit guides my whole life. So, of course, I'm going to feel like they're working with us. And I do feel that there are many souls on the other side who don't want this situation to continue. You know, there are many
Yeah,
souls
no, definitely.
who've been abused, who are sort of kind of stuck because justice hasn't come. They want this sorted out too. So I always like to think about, people who do these terrible things being horrifically haunted, because that can happen. I like
Oh,
the idea.
they will be haunted. We often hear about them really having horrific endings in their lives. Um, I don't wish that upon anyone. I really don't. But I guess your soul will call for what it needs. I'm
Well,
interested to hear your take on this whole Trump Epstein thing as a survivor. And I know you weren't an Epstein survivor, um, but as a survivor, I would love to hear what you feel or is happening with this Trump Epstein thing, that we see Trump pretty much calling it off, saying it's a hoax. We've seen videos, him calling it a hoax, him blowing it off. I mean, but
the one thing
the way the world works right now, anything could be possible with that. So what do you say?
the one thing that I keep going back to that so many other people have pointed out is, if that's the case, then Ghislaine or Ghislaine or whatever, however you pronounce her name, Maxwell would not be in jail. And that is so very, very obvious. That makes me wonder, is this some sort of psyop? Because it just doesn't make sense. You can't, it's not possible for it to be a hoax. So I know there's a lot of conjecture about whether or not it's to make sure that everybody's then clamoring for that information, especially those that despise Trump, that it might be trying to bring some sort of extra attention to it. I honestly don't know. I try my best to keep out of American politics because it's such a minefield. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I don't
Yeah,
live there.
no,
But
it is a
that's the way
minefield.
I'm looking at it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And one of the South African survivors that I interviewed, that's an Epstein survivor, Juliet Bryant. I mean, she was paid $2 million as an Epstein survivor. So, what are you saying, that you know that suddenly there are no Epstein survivors? Where are all these women? But Juliet claims, she will say, the only man she was trafficked to was Epstein. She saw other men there, she never saw kids, she never saw anything else, and that was over a period on and off over 18 months. But it doesn't mean that wasn't there, because with the submarines and stuff. But she woke up in a lab with scientists around her doing experiments and things on her, and she saw Epstein literally shapeshift. So so we know that that stuff is true for sure. For me to say that there were no other survivors, I think, is an absolute insult to the survivor community. There's no doubt in my mind that Epstein, there's so much more. And yes, when we're looking at the cloning labs and stuff like that, it makes perfect sense to me that they'd be there. Because that's what apparently Ghislaine was saying the other day. And apparently she's been moved now as well to a minimum security prison, by the way. Yeah, she's been moved. She's had an interview with one or two guys. I don't follow that too closely. She's now moved to some place which is a minimum, like a really, really nice prison.
Wow. Well, is that so she can be got at, or is that because she's complying and giving them the information that they want? Very interesting.
Well, I think if you've got to think about Ghislaine Maxwell, the person she has to please and appease right now is Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if Trump is guilty, and please you all don't come for me, but I am just saying we have to consider this possibility. If Trump is guilty, then of course she's going to give up, in my opinion, a whole lot of other information that covers his stuff, and then she gets a pardon or a lesser sentence or whatever it is. I don't know how the system there works. But she knows that Trump's the person to please right now. And if she is, and there's plenty of pictures of Ghislaine and Epstein and Trump and Melania together. Plenty. I mean, it's a well-known fact they knew each other. Of course, doesn't mean that they were doing things. We understand that as well. Not everyone went to Epstein Island was a perpetrator. I'm going to make that very clear in my opinion. But I am saying that when there's so much smoke, there has to be a little bit of fire.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's interesting because somebody sent me a video. They were asking me if the cloning thing was a likelihood, and I think it very much is. I mean, I was told by my father, and I call my father Australia's Epstein. I was told by my father that I was a clone of my mother, which I don't believe is true, and a test tube baby. And my mother did struggle to get pregnant with me, and it turned out when she had a hysterectomy after I was born in her 30s, one of her ovaries had been stolen. There's no recollection of when it was taken. And the doctor who did the hysterectomy said it was surgically removed because of the scar tissue. So it wasn't that she wasn't born with it, one of her ovaries, it was removed. She was also told the only way she conceived me was because her fallopian tube, the one that was working, or the one that had an ovary to attach to, which was completely scarred, had somehow unblocked because she had a very high temperature. So she was hilarious. So it's also fascinating that one of her son was supposedly born with one testicle. Now, was that stolen also? So they'll take ovaries and testicles, and they'll use the genetic material for cloning for to create Cabbage Patch Kids, to get children, to procure them. We know that they can do these things in labs. They can grow a child with that outside of a womb. So I don't know how many eggs I have. Each ovary is supposed to have about 20,000 eggs in it. God only knows when they took it from her. So
that's. Then that's just absolutely solidifies the knowledge that she was unfortunately very much part of the system and abused as well. Your mum, she wasn't just a. Gosh, so bad. Such a long line of abuse, and one really just has to try and find ways to reverse that. Wow. Which kind of makes me think as well of where we're at right now, right? Were you talking about energies earlier on and people being tired and just so much going on? What do you think is in the air right now in terms of where we're at just with that?
Well, it makes sense that people would be tired. We've been going through this. Most of us, or most people haven't had, trauma throughout their entire life. Well, they might have had certain traumas, but not the 5 years that we've just done this full on, constant realizing that the government doesn't love us, realizing that we're under attack. Food, the air, the water, everything is under attack at the moment. We're being attacked with bioweapons. So that in itself is enormously traumatic. And when you've got it prolonged, I think people are just exhausted. I think there's also the earth energies at the moment are shifting. We're also in a 9-year, which is the end of a 9-year cycle, which means you've done your stuff in the previous 8 years, it's going to smash you. And as we get closer and closer to the end of this year, it's going to get more and more intense. So it's time to really knuckle down your work. And I would really recommend to people do some practices, some relaxation practices. And just remember, we've got this. We can win this. We've just got to think our way through it. So instead of worrying and stressing and being immersed in this fear porn, think about the world that you want to create. We're constantly bombarded with those things because we will create it with our collective thought. We have to collectively think about a positive outcome. And
Absolutely. It's really just working in harmony to get there, And I think also, so much of what they've told us they can do and have been doing is a lot of mind manipulation and control as well. It's kind of like they're pinning us down with a little a screw and they're saying there's a 10-ton rock on that screw and you can't get up.
Yeah.
And I'm going, bull crap. It's literally a pin. All you have to do is resurrect the way you think from this wounded place of suffering and violation on whatever level. And as you resurrect, your ideas change as well. And so we start really just walking a more authentic path of healing as opposed to feeling wounded and broken all the time. I mean, I always speak about survivors like yourself, and you are always in the mix when I refer to that, who've literally been to hell and back. And you're able to show the pathway for others. And it's through compassion and love. You know, as destructive as what the wounding can be, it also has the ability to flip the grid and become something extremely healing and beneficial for the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we've just got to have time to breathe and turn off that amygdala that's saying jump and fight and flight, and just recognize that we are the ones, we're the architects of all of this. They don't have anything, they don't have any spark. All they can do is try and manipulate us with old playbooks that have been done ad nauseum over and over and over again. So we're getting somewhere. I think next year we're probably going to see a lot of new beginnings again, neurology, first year, that 9-year cycle. I think there's some rebuilding to take place, and I'm looking forward to it. I really am. 9 years, I enjoy 9 years because I'm a 36-9. I love the 9. It's integrity and wisdom. It's that winding up and learning everything you need to learn. So I love 9 years, but I also recognise that they can be a bit rough.
Yeah, one tends to sometimes run around in that cycle because 9 is the 0 and the 1 together. So one tends to go through that loop, right?
Yep.
And then suddenly, boop, you move into the 1, which is a new beginning, you know, which is also lovely. And then actually the 10, which is also the 1 and the 0. So
Yeah,
that's
10,
new.
I love that.
That's,
Talking about yeah. Beautiful.
it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we end off, you have a theory on time travel, I do believe.
Yeah. So this just came through conversations and interactions with a really lovely person that I've known for a while, just sort of peripherally, but got to know at the Adelaide event. And he showed me this incredible basilica in Gozo in Malta. And it's like 12th century. It's huge, massive thing. And out the front, very clearly on the grounds, are these 3 big circles that are kind of interlocking. And that fascinated me because it looked to me like, because these immense churches, basilicas, cathedrals, they're all on the crossing point of very powerful ley lines. That's why they put them there. And they use piezoelectric rock to capture the ley line, capture the earth energy in those buildings. And then they make churches and whatever. So it was very clear that there were 3 portals marked out the front. What I didn't notice until a little while later was there was a little path painted on the ground and this labyrinth not far from where these 3 portals are. Now, I've seen this labyrinth symbol on a Freeland passport. Now, the Freeland passport supposedly to all the countries that us plebs aren't supposed to know about. So that's dependent on whether or not you believe that Antarctica is actually just an ice wall and there are actually other countries outside of the ones that we're allowed to know about. I've seen them very, very well maintained in absolutely obscure places, like in there's a place near Bendigo, near Castlemaine. I can't quite Forest something. There's one just in this obscure area, and that would take an enormous amount of maintenance because it's just in the grass in the pasture. Someone spends a lot of time maintaining it. There's also one outside the Fortuna mansion in Bendigo, the grounds there. Now, that particular mansion was used by ASIO, the Secret Services operatives, up until the 60s. For a very long time, they have all sorts of weird things in that building, including secret coffin drawers. They call them coffin drawers. So they were obviously using them for cadavers and things. They've got one there. I've seen them all around the place. Now, I looked it up, and apparently it's supposed to be a symbol for enlightenment. You're going through the maze of life, the labyrinth of life to reach enlightenment. I don't think that's the case. I think where you get multiple portals together, so crossing points of ley lines are a portal. When you get 3 of them in one space, I think that's actually where they do the time travel. Now, this might sound really out there for some people, but we've got
it makes such sense.
They've got the Philadelphia experiment, so they know how to do time travel. They took those men out of that ship and they put them back in, and they were fused to the ship, many of them. So, and you know, it's obviously a thing, but Australian Aboriginal, like our original people, talk about the specific locations, and it's got something to do with the crossing of portals. They can actually translate in those spaces and travel. So I think that might be, I think these labyrinths, people need to keep an eye out for them. I might send you a picture. You might want to use that as part of the.
I'd love to. Please do. Yeah,
because
it'd be great.
the fact that they're so well maintained. There's one in Queensland, in Australia. These are specifically done on purpose, and it's not just some sort of esoteric. You know, it's not just a symbol of enlightenment. It's literally it's marking a point. That's where you go.
Totally. Because remember with the labyrinths as well, I mean, they're going to reverse that. They're going to use exactly the original, almost like spiral walk of a labyrinth, right? For their nefarious purposes too.
Yes.
I mean, energy is bendable. You can completely manipulate it for your evil desires too.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what they do with these things. And as you say, it makes almost like a springboard. It'll be like a springboard for them.
Yeah. And this is why ley lines are so controlled in cities, why they go to such elaborate lengths to control the layers, the earth energies in those spaces. They're controlling it because that is the power grid. That is where they get most of their power. They put their arenas in those spaces where they cross so they can get loose energy. So it's a fascinating thing. You know, it's so complicated that it really does lend itself to the possibility that it's not just humans that are running the place.
I don't think it's humans. I think they need us humans. They're using humans. And I think, yes, humans have become involved. But I don't really think that humans much of a human after that. But I guess humans, we're very pliable as well. So let me not give us too much credit for being amazing creatures, because we really also cannot be amazing creatures. Wow, that's for sure. Fascinating. It makes a lot of sense to me what you're saying, though, about the ley lines and the time travel.
Yeah. So, you know, I've been fascinated with this for a long time because I just knew that there was something more to it. It's not just a symbol. There's something else going on here. You know, and this movie talk about labyrinths and they go into it, you know, because they have to, the revelation of the method, they have to show us what they're doing. So, yeah, I'm still going to find some more information. But you see them a lot outside churches, and that's their explanation is it's about enlightenment. Well, every church is sighted on a ley line by a Freemason with a sighting rod, so clearly, you know, it's got something to do with that. But you see them outside of churches, and they're always identical. It's always the same number of rings. It looks like a circular circuit board. Yeah, really interesting. Yeah. So yeah,
fascinating. I'm definitely gonna like look into that more as well. Definitely. But I'd love to see the pics, and we can just pop the pics up then.
Yeah.
When we post the show. Wow. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. We're always coming up with something fabulous, Rachel.
Talk about something interesting, and the beautiful thing about talking to people like yourself about it is you've obviously got, you know, a beautiful audience, curious minds. They're obviously very open-minded. I've no doubt they'll go off and have their own little forays, and you know they might be able to work out some stuff, and hopefully they might share that around because we're all waking up together.
Totally. I know, most definitely. Yeah, guys, well, go check it out. Exactly. We're gonna, well, by the time you hear this, the pictures will be up. I hope. So send them, Rachel. And then we can all just explore together. I mean, this is really, really very, very interesting. Wow. So thank you for that. And I appreciate you bringing the latest from Australia again with dodgy judges and we have no words for that. So slowly but surely, we will clean up the swamp together. So thank you for what you do on that side of the continent. And guys and gals, thank you so much for watching. Really, really, really appreciate you guys. Give us a like, share, subscribe. All Rachel's information's in the description area, so please go check it out and follow her on everything because she's wonderful. Take good care, everybody. God bless you all. And until the next time, goodbye.